Are you looking for the perfect bracelet for a loved one? Would your man be interested in a personalized keyring from his children? Are you looking for the best priced jewelry, whether it be a necklace, ring, earrings, bangle, or even more? Look no further than Crafted Arts. Crafted Arts is a local business based in Barry within the Vale of Glamorgan, and they have a range of all the perfect items you need. If it's for the perfect gift for an anniversary, or maybe it's for someone's birthday, maybe something for Christmas, or you wanted to give someone that perfect gift that will last a long time, Crafted Arts is the business for you. If you want to know more or see what they have in stock, then you can visit them locally at 29 High Street, Barry, Vale of Glamorgan, CF62 7EB, or you can go onto their website at www.craftedarts.co.uk. You could even email them at info@craftedarts.co.uk, or maybe just give them a call at 07789 94248. Trust me, it's worth it for the perfect gift. The best thing about Creative Space is that we don't just want to encourage people in being creative in TV, film, or even theatre. We also want you to be creative in a variety of other things as well. So do you want to have experience in making jewelry? Do you want to pick up a hobby but do not know what to take or where to start? Then look no further than the Vale Jewelry Workshops. Vale Jewelry Workshops provides the best experience in teaching you how to make the best sterling silver jewelry. They will help you make a range of silverware, including rings, bracelets, and many more pieces. You will learn the basic silversmith skills such as soldering, texturing, shaping, and lots more. Not only do the workshops provide the experience for adults, it also provides the best experience and fun for children as well. So if you want to learn on how to make sterling silver jewelry, and if you're very interested, go onto their website at www.valegewelryworkshops.co.uk or get in touch with them via email at info@valegewelryworkshops.co.uk, or even phone them at 07789 794248. Hey guys, how's it going? Reece Deans here on Creative Space Podcast, and today's guest on the podcast show is none other than Derrick Baskin. Derrick Baskin and I sit down to talk about his experience, how he started off on the stage, how he got onto Broadway, and also talking about how he performed in some major musicals, including Disney's stage version of The Little Mermaid, being the original cast member, also Ain't Too Proud, for which he played Otis Williams from The Temptations, which gained him a Tony Award nomination, might I add. He also talks about a lot of other musicals, including Memphis and so on. It was such a pleasure to have him on the podcast to talk about the musicals, the stage, etc., because it felt like I haven't talked about that for months on the podcast. I think the last person I spoke to in regards to Broadway, West End, musicals, stage plays, etc., was Lena Hall. And ironically, we do mention Lena Hall on the podcast. But without further ado, let's get down to it. It was me and Derrick Baskin on Creative Space Podcast. That's a new one. Okay. Like new scenes coming out on a different day. Yeah, it's been nice and sunny over here. The sun's not going to fade yet until another 2 hours. Obviously, it's always.
Where are you? Where are you?
Wales. Wales in the yeah, and it's the seaside town of Barry. So
Nice.
I don't know if you've. I've had some of my guests I've had on the show. They're not familiar with the town Barry unless someone mentions Gavin and Stacey, which obviously James Corden was the one who
Right.
wrote it, and I'm like, oh god, okay, yeah, that's the town. That's the town.
We're just gonna, my reference is gonna be you from now on, so that's good.
I know. I know, it's fantastic. But I'm absolutely thrilled to have you on the show, because for you are I say in a very long time, I think the first actor who's been on Broadway, the first Broadway actor in a while that's been on my show, because I've had a few different musicians on, I've had a few other individuals who've done voice acting and everything, but I never had anyone in a while done works on the stage, and I really wanted to get back to speaking to people who have done stage work, whether it be Broadway or West End, so I could be more. Not that I've got anything against the guests I've spoken to, but I'm like, yeah, I could talk about theatre to a proper. I could talk about Broadway, yay!
Well, thanks for having me, man.
No, it's a pleasure, an absolute pleasure. Now I gotta ask, it's really intriguing to me because doing a bit of research on you, and obviously you got a degree in biology,
Yeah,
and I see biology, and then Broadway actor, Tony nominated, and I'm thinking, how did
right.
that become that?
What's the correlation, right?
Yeah. So
Well,
where
I
did it
have to
come
say
from?
it's I kind of grew up with music. Music has always been my first love.
Mm,
My father is a huge jazz fan. My mom is a huge gospel fan. My mom also sings, but she loves gospel and opera. My dad likes jazz, right? And so like music has always been, and I played in orchestra, I played trombone. Um, and so like music has always been just such an integral part of my life. And it kind of turns my brain on. I'll listen to a piece of classical music, or if I listen to like Stevie Wonder, or any kind of good music, any music, whatever the genre of music, like if it's really good, it has soul, right? And so it's always turned my brain on, kind of in the same way that science, because I'm such a science geek. You know what I mean? Like I've always loved it. It's always been like my favorite, any kind of science, chemistry, biology, zoology, any kind of ology with the sciences. It's like it also turns my brain on. So um whichever direction I go in, my brain likes it. You know what I
mm,
mean? And so
yeah, yeah.
when I started my journey with theater, I didn't know I would even ever be part, like it was never a dream for me, And so uh I went to a show. The first Broadway show I ever auditioned for was Rent,
Mm,
and I hadn't seen it. And so I was like, well, you should at least go look at what you're auditioning for. Because I just went on a whim with my friends who were like, they were like theater buffs. They loved theater. And so they were like, come to this open call. And I was like, sure. So excuse me. After I auditioned and people were starting to like me, I was like, well, what have you been auditioning for? And so when I went to go see the show, the same thing happened to like my brain and like my spirit that does like when I listen to music. And I saw it and I was like, oh. And I was like right in the front row. I won the lottery. You put your name in a bucket and they call your name. So I got like a $20 ticket. I was sitting in the front row and I'm looking up because you're in the front row, you're looking up. And I'm looking up and I was like, oh, that's it. Like I can do that. And like something just clicked. And it was like, this is why you're in New York. So like, let's pursue it. And I just said, okay. And I kind of just, like one foot in front of the other. I had no clue, had no direction really. Um, like how to become like a quote unquote Broadway star. It's like, how do you do that? You know what I mean? I had no clue because I didn't have any like formal training in like theater or musical theater or even singing at that time. I'm just, I grew up singing in church. So I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I just kind of kept my spirit open and like
mm.
things would just present themselves. And I was like, okay, we're gonna do that. And I'm a very good like as an actor, you have to be a very good study of like human behavior. And so I would always just watch people and I learned a lot about what to do, but more importantly, like what not to do in theater by just watching. Yeah.
It's intriguing because you when you were saying about anything to end in ology or anything, like biology, chemistry, or
Yeah.
zoology and everything, there was always a part of me that I always say to my fiance, and she said, "Oh, if you didn't want to be because I want to be a playwright, I want to write theater, etc." And she said, "If you didn't want to be that, what would you have gone on to?" And I said, "Well, it was either gonna be if there was like an alternate reality, I would have expected me to go down the path of paleontology or
Mm.
zoology or anything to do with Greek mythology.
Yeah, yeah.
Something weird to do with that because growing up, I loved dinosaurs and I loved animals as well. And even though there was like probably a handful of them where they'll be like, Reese, hold this, and I go, no, no, you're okay. I'm fine. It's okay. But
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, but paleontology is the best one because of we're obviously on a seaside town. Um, there's some areas of my town where we have found fossils, whether it be, some of the smaller ones or some of the big ones. It was always really intriguing, and even towns and villages next to mine have been on the news to say, well, this little girl or um, this family finds a big fossil in the middle of the seafront and everything, and it's always been really
yeah,
intriguing. And then you hear lots in America saying, "Yep, we found this. We found a brachiosaurus. We found a triceratops. We found this." And I thought, damn,
yeah.
that would have been so intriguing. And it's just crazy. And but I also love it at the same time that it's like, do you know how, so you probably discussed this with many of your peers or whatever, but when people say, oh, if you've always got like a backup, if something doesn't happen on Broadway or on Hollywood or ever, have this always been the backup? And I bet you've always told them, well, I got a biology degree, so there's always that. Is that have always been the
Uh,
case sometimes?
that's so I think it's interesting. There are two schools of thought with that, right?
Mm,
I don't follow that school of thought. Denzel Washington did this interview years ago, and in it he was talking about the pursuit of like your dreams.
mm,
And I remember him saying, and before it was interesting because I had this like this particular school of thought. I was thinking it, and then he said it, and I was like, okay, I'm on the right path. I feel like when you have a dream or a passion, I don't know if you give yourself a way out.
mm,
I think you have to, because I think if you think that there's a backup, I don't know if you devote your entire heart, your entire soul to your dream, right? As opposed to, well, if this doesn't work out, I can just always go back. I think you're giving yourself an escape. And I just feel like when you are in pursuit of what you want to do, what you think you're called to do, like there's no backup. And so for
mm,
me, like once I decided to be an artist, I'm like, okay, then that's it. Like, do I want to go back to medicine? I would have been happy had I gone down that road, right? But now that I'm here, we're here. I don't have another backup. And
yeah,
so I don't believe in backups. I understand um, people who have that um because this business is very it's a hard business, and not everyone makes it,
yeah. No,
and that's
I
just
completely
the
agree.
odds. The odds are, most of the odds are against you making it, right?
Oh yeah,
But I think you have to love yourself, affirm yourself, believe in yourself to such a degree that you don't give yourself a backup. And so I live the way like I don't have a backup. I don't. I was like, this is it. This is what I've chosen to do. Now, if life happens and I don't want to do this anymore, then I'll pivot. But it won't be because I like this isn't working out for me, right? Like I love creating art as well. Like this thing behind me, like I made that. And so like I was like, all right, if you want to do art, now we're going to be an artist. We're going to, we're still an artist, but we're going to be, applied art now instead. I don't know. I, no risk, no reward, right?
oh yeah,
And
exactly.
so my life has always been taking the biggest risks and just letting it fly and let's see what happens.
Oh yeah.
But I don't do backup plans.
No, do you know what? It was intriguing for me to hear that because there was a few. Obviously, I'll just show it to you right now. It's like yesterday I did a poetry night because I wrote very quickly. I wrote that.
What are we
Um,
saying? Okay.
yeah, and it's my poetry collection. And I've written. I've published two projects. One was a script book, like a one man play, and then obviously that. And and people have always said to me, yeah, Reese, you're published now. No one could take that away from you because you've wanted that and you've got that, and now you got to keep going. And it was interesting that a friend of mine, two friends of mine, Lewis Arnold and Chris Maxwell, all three of us were sat there and we were talking about dreams and pursuits and everything. And I think it was my friend Chris who said, um, "You you won't." What was it something to do? Never have a backup plan because if you won't test yourself as a person. You won't test yourself as a person because you will find out more, or when you're pursuing the dreams of how you can find a lot about yourself. And I was like that because all I really just cared about was this is my goal, this is my opportunity,
Yeah,
and he
yeah,
said, well, this is how you're going to find out the person who you are when you go after that dream
yeah.
and see how people.
And like
uh
like fully go after it though. You know what I mean? And like again, everyone's pursuit of their dream is different, right? So like, your way to get to, like, say we were both doing the same thing, if we're both actors, like your way to making it is different from my journey. Do you know what I mean? And like
mm,
not comparing, like, okay, well, they did this, so I should do this. It's like, no. Do you know what I mean? It's like there are people who, for instance, like there's things that I won't go in for acting wise, right? Because it's
mm,
against kind of my brand, and it's against, like if it's a really bad show, you know what I
yeah,
mean? They're like, well, just go in anyway. It doesn't matter. I'm like, "But that's not what I want." Some people will go in for everything. Do you know what I mean? And it's just like
yeah,
I'm pretty focused on what I want to do. Um, I'm a leading man, so I'm going to go in for leading characters. And I'm going to just keep my energy moving forward in that, right? But
mm,
someone else might be like, "Hey, I'll do anything." Like Samuel Jackson, like when he started out, I mean, there's not a role he didn't do. Do you know what I mean? And
yeah, yeah,
so, and I understand that, everyone's journey is just very different, and
mm,
just allowing your journey to be your journey.
exactly. No, it's absolutely. When it came down to your Broadway debut, could
Yeah.
you tell us more about that journey, that start of you being on the Broadway stage? What was that like for you?
Oh man, it was so cool because so my first Broadway show, it's called the 25th Annual Putnam County Spelling Bee. And there were 9 people in the cast. 7 of us, it was our Broadway debut.
Oh wow.
And yeah, it was a huge, like, most of us had never been on Broadway. Two of us had two of the cast members had been on Broadway before. And it was such a kind of like a motley crew of people. Like everyone was a different type of person, but all of us were like whatever type of person you are, we were like the top of our game in that. So like you have all these like big energies coming in, right? And the show itself was just so it was so very special. It had a lot of heart. And I'm very blessed in saying like my first Broadway show was like a special show. Some people, your first Broadway show, you're happy to be on Broadway, but it's sometimes it's not that good, and you're trying to make things better than it actually is. But my first Broadway show was actually a brilliant show. And the cast was just brilliant, and we had a lot of energy around it. So like everyone wanted to come and see our show, which was like just really cool. We like to hit like, and it was a small little scrappy show, but it had got just a lot of attention, and so that time was very exciting, man. And we were off Broadway right before we were on Broadway, and we literally and this never happens. Like a lot of times when you do a show, you'll do it out of town, and then after out of town, you'll come to like you'll go to Broadway, right? And so, but there's like a lot of time between, right? So we were out of town. We were in the Berkshires, on the East Coast, and then uh an off-Broadway house called Second Stage picked us up. So we had a little time off of that. But when we were off Broadway, a theater opened up and they wanted us immediately. And so we had 2 weeks off and we were on Broadway. That never happens. And then within those 2 weeks, we recorded the cast album. So we were still not even really off. You know what I mean? So like
Yeah, yeah.
things move so fast. And then we just had such, because we were off Broadway, and a lot of times the difference between, because there's some brilliant off Broadway like pieces, plays, and musicals. The only difference between off Broadway and Broadway is a lot of times the size of the house.
Mm,
They're usually smaller houses. Our house was like maybe 300 seats. Um, but because we were off Broadway, we were like up literally across the street from where a lot of the Broadway houses were. So like we were in the mix, and so people were coming to see us, and um, we were getting this like reputation of being this very quirky, very smart, very brilliant show. And we had all this momentum, and then we just went to Broadway, and it was like we were being like shot out of a cannon, you know? And like none of us, it was crazy. I remember the day, like we were in like the green room of this off of our off Broadway house, and they sat us all down, and they were like, "Okay, guys, we have some news. We're going to Broadway." Like I remember the day we got like the announcement that we're going to Broadway, and I was like, "Oh my God!" I was like screaming, I ran out, like running down the street. And it was just a wonderful time, but it was a learning time for me because again, I had never been on Broadway. My first principal contract, I've only originated shows on Broadway. I've never like replaced anyone. I've never been in the ensemble on a Broadway stage. I've always been a lead or a principal character. But you know, I was still learning. You know, I was still learning. Like, I'm still learning acting, really. And I hadn't taken any voice lessons at that time. You know,
mm,
so I was just, you know, just raw talent. You
yeah,
know, but then once I got to Broadway, I realized, okay, to sing 8 times a week, you know, you have to kind of have a technique to do that so you don't hurt yourself. So
oh
like
yeah,
a year, yeah, a year into my first Broadway contract, I started taking voice lessons. It was just hilarious. They're like, how you're supposed to take voice lessons like when you're young? I was like, well, I waited until like a year into my Broadway contract, and just so I could like have longevity, you know, in the business. But it was very exciting, very exciting time. But I learned a lot in a very like you have to like okay, you're here now, you can't fold, right? So like you know, how do you maintain success here? And how do you maintain this level of success? Like what do you do? And so I was learning how to like really take care of myself, and I was still like studying acting and all that stuff. Yeah, but it was exciting, man. It was an exciting time.
oh, I know, I bet I can only imagine that so
Yeah.
far, and hopefully I'll do that one day. And I just wanted to ask as well about the schedules of like rehearsal process when it comes to any Broadway show, not just the first one, but anyone. What is, if you can tell me, you know, because whenever we do like Amdram performances, right, we rehearse, you know, twice a week, and that'll
Oh,
be for what was it? So if I was to do a show now, so say start in January, and our show is not until July, so we'll have 5.5 months or something of prep. I guarantee that's not the case on Broadway. You'll have like a shorter time with, if I'm right in saying that, or does it vary?
yeah. So usually it's first of all, twice a week is crazy. Like I was like, that's crazy. Like, how do you have the time to like let it solidify? So like usually it's like 6 weeks, right? So you have like a month and it's 8 hours a day. So it's like 10 to 6. So it's either 10 to 6 with like a lunch break, right? Or you'll do like a straight 6 hours.
Mm,
Um and you usually do like about 6 weeks, right? So you'll do a month in the studio. And then the next 2 weeks will be your tech weeks, right? So everything will have been you have worked everything that you need to work through um in the studio. You move to the theater, and then for those 2 weeks, um, it's tech. So like that's when your creative team comes in, your sound people, your lighting, and all that stuff. And that takes a long time. Like it's a lot of work. It's very long hours. A lot of time we call it 10 out of 12. So like you'll be working 10 hours out of 12 hours, right? So like if you're called at 10, you're done at like 9. You know what I mean? Like
wow,
9
yeah.
p.m. And so it's
Nice.
like it's long, long hours, but they like the tech people need it. You know, the sound people, you're meeting stagehands for the first time, you're meeting your wardrobe people for the first time. Everyone has their job and everyone it's their time to learn. So it's like your time is and then you have to also kind of learn like once you're on stage, your costumes, a lot for me costumes change everything. Like once I put on the costume, I know exactly what this is. Like you rehearsing in like, t-shirt and sweats. But then when you put on like what you're going to wear, like, this character, so you might change the way you're carrying yourself. You might change your delivery of like, lines or whatever. In those 2 weeks, is when you have the time to do that. So you have those 6 weeks. And then after those 2 weeks, you have usually another month of previews, right? And so that's when you have, you know, full production, but you do it in front of an audience. And during that time, the creative team is like, depending on like their audience's reaction to this and that, they tweak things. They'll say, okay, this isn't working anymore. That laugh doesn't work. Let's change it. Let's change this entire scene. We've gotten rid of entire songs. Like I remember like, okay, we're not doing this song anymore. Now we're doing this song. And you have to
Oh
learn
yeah.
it so fast. Yeah, you learn it on the fly. It's just like, Jesus Christ, have to learn it. I was like, and like I had like, we're not doing these lines anymore. So take those lines out and then learn these lines. And we're putting it in tonight. Like it's just like that. And
Oh
so you're just
damn,
like,
yeah.
it's a lot. It's a
Yeah.
lot. And you just have to be, and it's crazy because you have so many things going on in your head and you're trying to memorize choreography. The choreography might change that day, and your lines might change. And a song might change all at the same time. And so you kind of just have to be kind of like roll with the punches and you kind of like like when you're in the ocean and you're kind of like just floating, like if like if you float on your back, you kind of just gotta like roll with like whatever is happening. You kind of like just relax. Okay, what do you want? Okay, I can do that. What do you need? Okay, you can't freak out. If you freak out, nothing's gonna go well.
No, no. And especially
Yeah.
if you love it as well, if you love doing what you're doing, then it's going to be not like stressful. I mean, like you said, people can react differently and think differently and everything. But if you love what you're doing, it's going to work out one way or the other. And if you're that passionate, would you say?
Well, that's what live theater is, though, and let me, there is a level of stress attached to it,
Mm.
but it's about how you handle the stress, right? And I did this one show, and I was like, my role was so big that I was like, I can't be stressed here. So I was like, because if I looked at what I was actually doing, I might faint, I might freak out and have an anxiety attack. So I was like, we're not going to stress out. We're moment by moment. We're just going to step up to the plate and we're going to accomplish whatever task you need right here. Do you know what I
Mm.
mean? It's just there's a level of stress, but you can't let that get to you because is there when it's time to produce, you can't let the stress get to you. You have to say, all right, it's time. I don't have the time for stress. I have to
Yeah, yeah,
focus. You have to
exactly.
ground yourself and center yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really funny because not long ago, I think a few months ago, I had Lena Hall on my podcast, and she was talking to me about when she played the role Nicola in Kinky Boots, and obviously being the one of the original cast members, and obviously how her character went from being, she said it went from being a big role, and it's still an important role as well in Kinky Boots. But it went from her to, like she had a song in it, and she learned the song, and there'll be Cindy Lauper and Harvey Firestein going, right, we're getting rid of your song now.
Yeah.
We got to do that, and she's like, oh, okay, and these are all in the previews as well.
Yeah.
And her role got cut and cut and cut, and but this is how, I mean, a sense of character that she is. She's obviously, she laugh about it, saying, "Yeah, it was a pain at first, but then that's the theater for you. That's musical theater as
Yeah.
well." And but it's just crazy when you said that because I was like, "Oh my God," I just remember Lena Hall saying exactly the same thing. But
Yeah. It happens. I had an 11 o'clock number. I was in this show called Memphis the Musical. And we actually won Best Musical that year. But my character had like this 11 o'clock number, and it was written for me. And we had done it out of town. It had we had done there had been several productions like around the country. I was in two of the three. One of them I couldn't do because I was on Broadway in another show. But the role was written for me, the song was written for me. And when we got to Broadway, they gave my song to the lead character. And they were like, we're gonna give this song to, Chad, who's the lead guy. And they were like, it was such a beautiful song. And I wasn't, again, the lead had a song after my song, but my song was literally the best song in the show. And so it made sense to give him the song, but when it happened, like it hurt really bad. I was like, oh man, you're taking my song away from me. And but I understood it, like looking back on it, it was the right choice. You know what I
Mm,
mean? But that's musical theater, man. Like things
yeah.
like, here, you take this, all right, we're gonna take this from you, we'll give you this, or we're gonna take it. I was in another show, Disney show, The Little Mermaid, and I played one of the bad guys, Flotsam and Jetsam, one of the eels, and they cut our show in half because they were like, the audience loves you too much, and you're actually taken away from Ariel, the lead. And so they were like, we have to take, and like Solidity was like, we have to take you out of the scene because because we were such a, it's a Disney cartoon, a Disney animated film, and our characters. In the movie, they're very, very small. You don't know anything about them, but like you were
Mm,
starting to figure out like who these new people, these new two characters are. So people are like really focused, like, oh my God,
mm,
what are these guys doing?
yeah.
And so they were like, we have to take you out. We have to take you out of this. We have to take you out of that. And it was like about half of our stuff was taken away from us. We still have some good stuff though, but like, yeah, it happens. But that all happened during previews.
Are you looking for the perfect bracelet for a loved one? Would your man be interested in a personalized keyring from his children? Are you looking for the best priced jewelry, whether it be a necklace, ring, earrings, bangle, or even more? Look no further than Crafted Arts. Crafted Arts is a local business based in Barry within the Vale of Glamorgan, and they have a range of all the perfect items you need. If it's for the perfect gift for an anniversary, or maybe it's for someone's birthday, maybe something for Christmas, or you wanted to give someone that perfect gift that will last a long time, Crafted Arts is the business for you. If you want to know more or see what they have in stock, then you can visit them locally at 29 High Street, Barry, Vale of Glamorgan, CF62 7EB, or you can go onto their website at www.craftedarts.co.uk. You could even email them at info@craftedarts.co.uk, or maybe just give them a call at 07789 94248. Trust me, it's worth it for the perfect gift. The best thing about Creative Space is that we don't just want to encourage people in being creative in TV, film, or even theatre. We also want you to be creative in a variety of other things as well. So do you want to have experience in making jewelry? Do you want to pick up a hobby but do not know what to take or where to start? Then look no further than the Veil Jewelry Workshops. Veil Jewelry Workshops provides the best experience in teaching you how to make the best sterling silver jewelry. They will help you make a range of silverware including rings, bracelets, and many more pieces. You will learn the basic silversmith skills such as soldering, texturing, shaping, and lots more. Not only do the workshops provide the experience for adults, it also provides the best experience and fun for children as well. So if you want to learn on how to make sterling silver jewelry, and if you're very interested, go onto their website at www.veiljuryworkshops.co.uk or get in touch with them via email at info@veiljuryworkshops.co.uk or even phone them at 07789 794248. Yeah, you mentioned Little Mermaid, and I really want to get down to that because, of course, you were one of the original cast members for the Broadway production.
Yeah.
What was it? What was it like? Did you ever get to interact with Alan Menken during the process of the show?
Yeah. He was pretty hands-on. I'm drawing a blank. There's a guy, the orchestrator who also did the music. You know, Alan is the composer, but then sometimes you'll have someone else who kind of like orchestrates the music. And Working with Alan's really, really cool. He's really hands-on. He likes what he likes. He knows what he likes. And Yeah, but it's working with him is really cool. He's a fan of music. He's a big fan of singers. Um, and so it's always really cool to kind of work with a composer who likes singers.
Mm,
Yeah, and so he was actually very hands-on. And you know, because we were eels, there were no songs from the movie. All of our stuff was original. And so I remember when I joined the cast, um, because you know they were like table reads and all that stuff,
mm,
and but then I joined when they started the production. They were like, man, we almost got rid of this song, but we like what you're doing with it, so like now it gets to stay, you know what I mean? So but working with Alan is pretty cool. He's a pretty cool guy, very down to earth, um not intimidating at all. You know, it's really, I mean, you know, he's accomplished so much stuff,
mm,
but when he comes into the room, he doesn't bring all of that with him.
yeah,
You know, he's just like, hey, let's create some music. And that's always like really cool because it doesn't feel
yeah,
like, well, I think some people still will, you know, depending on who you work with, like people will still feel pressure, but I never felt pressure to perform for him. I was like, all right, let's create together. And I think a
yeah,
lot of artists, if you approach it that way, like, you know, the composer can only write it, but you get to bring it to life, right? And so that makes you guys partners. You know what I
mm,
mean? That makes you equals. And so, like, because Alan doesn't sing like I do, he can sing. He's a nice voice, but he doesn't sing like I do. You
mm,
know, and so I get to bring your songs to life, which makes me also very important. You
yeah,
know, it's not like I'm just like a little low level something. Do you know what I mean? Like
yeah, yeah,
my art, my spirit, it's I bring life to creatives. You know what I mean? That makes me very important.
yeah. I learned a lot of with because obviously a lot of people when they think of the Little Mermaid, they think of the film, they think of all the songs in the films, and evidently and um, rightfully so that there's going to be new music when it comes to the stage performances, not just in Little Mermaid. It's happened with Beauty and the Beast. It's happened with
Yep.
Aladdin everywhere, and
Yep.
it was so interesting because again, my fiance she played Ursula in a production, and the one song that stands out to me is the first number that she sings, not Poor for Fortunate Souls. I want the good times back. I want the
Yes, I remember
and
that song. Yeah, yeah.
I was just like, that is such a good song. I was like, I was
Yeah.
taken aback by it. I was thinking, wow, um, and it was just the way it was brought to life and everything. I thought, man, that's just brought another three-dimensional stuff to the whole character. Um,
Yeah.
did did you and your co-star the one who played? So you played Flotsam. So who played?
I played Jetsam.
Oh, you played
Flotsam,
Jetsam.
his name is Flotsam was his name is Tyler Maynard.
Yeah.
Um,
Was you
Really
in
cool guy.
that number? The good
Yeah, it
time.
was so the number was the three of us. So Sherry Renee Scott, she played Ursula. She's a Broadway legend, Broadway royalty, and
Yeah.
we were her minions. And so the three of us sang that song together. Yeah, it was a
Oh,
lot of fun, and the three of us had a lot of fun like creating because like uh, Sherry had a vision of who Ursula was, but she also like was very free and like playing with us.
mm,
And so like we would do something, she'd be like, yeah, let's do that. You know what I mean? So it was like
yeah.
very collaborative. But we sang that song, I remember that song. And it was so funny because they at first it was just the three of us, and then they wanted to make it a bigger number. And so they added like extra eels to like dance behind us. It was like an entire production. I was just like, okay. But it was a lot of fun. That song was a lot of fun. We had a good time on that song.
Yeah.
And it was early, it's early in the show. Yeah, when you first meet her, that's her first song.
Exactly. Oh, did any of the I know that with all the people that were working on the musical, everyone's professional, everyone's done Broadway, everyone's done it, but because it was bringing The Little Mermaid to Broadway for the very first time, was there any sort of pressure that was mounted on that because of what the film brought and the legacy, and obviously you're trying to bring it to life in a different way. Was there any sort of pressure within the cast?
You know, so the thing about Disney is sometimes Disney gets kind of a bad rap on Broadway. A lot of times people don't want Disney shows to succeed, right? And I don't
Mm,
understand why that is. Because there's some, not all of them, but there are a few really good Disney shows, you know what I mean? But a lot of times there's like an uphill battle with like Broadway shows and like a Disney Broadway show, right? And
mm,
so people are expecting us to not to kind of fail, right?
mm,
But the cast, um, we are so connected, and we had such a good time that we never. There was again like as an artist, you have your own internal standard, right? And so it's like, here's the standard, here's what I bring to the table. So um, I never was like, damn, we have a pressure to be good because no matter what I do, it's going to be good, right?
mm,
And a lot of the people that I surround myself with, um, you're not gonna like up your game because it's a show. You're always gonna bring your best to something, right? And
mm.
so I, I I don't think we had a pressure for it to be good. We had our own standards. You know what I mean? And just like, when you are in a Disney show and people are already gonna be like not rooting against you, you throw it all away and you say, "Hey, let's just have fun and let's have a good
Mm.
show."
Oh,
Yeah, so that's what
exactly.
we did. Yeah.
Staying on to Disney for a moment, because there is a performer that when you did Memphis, there was an actor by the name of, I hope I get his last name right, James Monroe Englehart. Englehart is
I go hard, I
Iglehart,
go
yeah,
hard. Yeah.
yeah, Iglehart. Um, he played the genie. He's done many played many roles. He's another Broadway royalty, but you get Robin Williams. When you think of him, he's, oh yeah, that's the voice of the genie for the film. But when you think of um James, you then think of genie on the Broadway stage. Is there a moment that sticks out for you when you performed with him on Memphis? And was Memphis before he did Aladdin? Am I right in saying that?
So it's so funny you mentioned James is my best friend.
Oh,
He's my absolute best friend. We've been friends since 2004. So we met, we did a regional production in Northern California of Memphis. That's how we met. And then after that, my first Broadway show was in 2000, from 2004 to 2005 was when I was developing that. Um, and we just remained friends from then. And then when I left my Broadway show, they were looking for my replacement. I was like, call James. And so they brought James to replace me. And my Broadway debut was also his Broadway debut in the same show, right? And
amazing.
so we've been best friends for years. I love him dearly. That's my brother. And his wife, his Dawn, they've been married for, oh gosh, maybe at least 20 years, maybe more. And his birthday is the first week in September, and he's turning 50. He's my bestie. And so I'm so proud of him. And I remember he's also just such a gregarious character. Personally, he's very jovial. If he walks into a room, the attention will be drawn to him. It's just who he is,
Mm,
very kind. We've been there for each other through a lot of things, through the ups and the downs. And I love that when you think of James, you do think of Genie, because he's very good at um, whatever role he steps into. He makes it his own. He brings what he does to it. Like
mm,
he also replaced Daveed Diggs in Hamilton. And they're very different They're very different types of men. Like James is a big man. He's a big fella. And David's a, slim guy. And so when he came in and just made it his own, and James is He's very good at that. He's about to start another Broadway show where he's playing Louis Armstrong.
Mm.
And I think he's going to even, I think after this show, you're gonna, when you think of his name, you're gonna think Louis Armstrong now. Um, yeah, he's my bestie, man. And so, wait, I forget what the question is. You talk about my best friend. I was like, I just want to talk about my best friend.
Yeah. Oh,
Is
go
there a
right ahead.
role?
Go right
Was
ahead.
that?
Carry on. No, carry on. Please continue. I mean, it was just, well, because obviously every time I've seen clips of him,
Yeah,
when he's done Broadway shows or guest appearances on live
yeah,
TV shows, more,
yeah,
and there's such a presence, like you said about. I was
yeah,
like, my God, you there's something magical about him. And when,
yeah,
no pun intended, with, because obviously he played the genie, but just
yeah,
funny enough, before you came on here, I watched I think it was The View, and Whoopi Goldberg introduced him because he sang the
yeah,
Oogie song, and I was there going, oh, this is really
yeah,
good. Oh my God.
yeah. He's just very, it's so funny because my journey to Broadway and his journey is different because I did it. I grew up. I was a military kid, military brat, and so I grew up in Japan and Germany, and so I didn't know anything about Broadway. I never wanted to be on Broadway. I wanted to like make music, sing, make albums, or what like that. I never wanted to be Broadway. James, from a very young age, has always wanted to be on Broadway. And so he's literally living his dreams,
Mm,
and to see him not only achieve his dreams, but like excel,
mm,
he's a juggernaut in this business. Everyone knows him. He's known like in pop culture. Do you know what I
mm.
mean? And so I'm so proud of him and I'm so happy for him. And um, yeah, yeah, he's a magnetic person. He's very charismatic. He's very caring. Um, he's very supportive. I mean, I can't say enough about him, man. He's a great character. He's very, there's a lot of integrity. Um, and yeah, he's just an all around great guy. Yeah,
So obviously he's going to be playing Louis Armstrong, real life singer, real life character. But you
yeah,
yourself, you played Otis Williams, from the Temptations,
yeah.
from Ain't Too Proud. Got a Tony nomination as well
I
for that.
did,
Oh
and a
my,
Grammy nomination. I
Grammy
got a Tony
nomination as
nomination
well.
and I got a Tony and a Grammy nomination out of that.
How did you feel though playing a real life individual, especially someone who's, I mean, when you think of the Temptations, you think of the song My Girl. Or I know they've sung many songs. There's so many
But
songs, but
you think of My Girl first, for sure.
you always think of My Girl. But what was that like for you to be playing him? And was he so generous of giving you as much information as he can for you to develop that on stage, that character on stage?
I couldn't have asked for a better gift than having him like around us. He kind of took us under his wings. There was a autobiography about the Temptations, and that we were able to read, but there's no better source than a person. You know what I mean? And so like we were in Berkeley, California, and he came. Of course, because every city we went to, even during no, every city we would come to, he would come and like be there with us and kind of support us. And I said, I was the lead of the show, of course. And so I was like, can we sit down and talk with you? He was like, absolutely. So we like huddled in his well, it wasn't a big hotel room. We were like, we're in his there's nothing small about Otis. Otis is a very big personality, so and he's earned it. But we were like in the living room part of his suite, and for hours he sat and he told us all of these stories. Um, and it's I can't I think I have like a video of some of it, and I just like I couldn't believe I was sitting and listening to like this history, Do you know what I mean? And he was so, you could hear him because he loved those guys so much. You know, the original guys, he loved them so much. And like to hear him talk about them individually and also collectively, um, it was everything I needed, you know? And like again, as the lead of that show, I was in every scene. I danced in every number. Uh, I sang. There's one song I didn't sing, which was a duet for like 2 minutes between two other characters. But like, I wasn't. There's nothing that I wasn't part of because it's told through the lens of Otis Williams. So I was always on stage, and then when I wasn't, I was taking 20. Literally, I have a 20-second quick change to then get back on stage. You know. But having him there, he was so generous. And it's interesting how like art imitated life because I was going through some things and I was able to kind of confide in him. He was like, everything that I remember, he's like, everything. I think I was wearing this shirt when we had that conversation because I can kind of, they were on tour in San Diego, which is 3 hours below me. And so I was like, oh, I'm going to come and hang out. And so I had just finished I think I had finished the show and I was still really kind of healing from that show because the show took everything from me. Like it required me to give more than I've ever given. And so I sat with him and I was talking about some of the things that I had gone through and kind of had to heal from and kind of suffered through. And he was like, there's nothing. He's like, everything you're going through, I've gone through. I understand. And to have someone to actually really understand, like, because I'm playing him, you know what I mean? And so art is sometimes imitating life a little bit, you know?
Mm.
And but to have him there, and he was such a wealth of knowledge and um, I mean, there's nothing I could have asked that he wouldn't have answered. Do you know what I mean? Like he was
Yeah.
just a complete open book, which helped me. And it was so funny because like we look nothing alike, nothing alike. But our spirits, like we're both Scorpios. His birthday's like I think a week or so, a week and 10 days before mine. And so we a lot of times we handle things in the same way. Our energy is very similar. Do you know what I mean? And so I was just like, okay, I have to bring his heart to this. If I could bring his heart to it, then I've done my job. And just talking with him, I understood the man he was. But the only way I could do that is if he were to be vulnerable and to share his heart, and he did. And it was such a
Fantastic.
gift, such a gift.
When you got to that moment where you saw when you sung the song "My Girl," do you do because in terms of like theater etiquette, right? There is some where you can't really join in the song, you got to listen to it and everything. But did that production? Did you ever encourage the audience to sing along, or And when that number "My Girl" was playing in the theater, what was that like for you yourself as a performer to sing that song?
Yeah, so it's so funny, like this show is very specific, in which like a lot of people who came to see the show were huge Temptations fans, right? So like people like my parents' age, my grandparents' age, so a lot of like baby boomers, you know what I mean? They would come, and a lot of times it was actually quite beautiful because you would see these people who were like I don't know, like 70 years old, like they turn into teenagers because when they first heard this song, they were young, right? And a lot of times when we would sing the songs, they're singing along with us, but they're not really listening to us. They're kind of listening to their memories. And
Yeah,
it's like they're listening to that time period, right? So it's like 2019 when we were on Broadway. You're singing My Girl, but the person listening to My Girl, they're back in the 60s. You know what I mean? And so like they're
yeah.
not even that we're like a conduit, you know what I mean, for their memories. Like, like, oh, I remember this. Like I remember like my sister's mother-in-law. I want to say she's in her 70s. She came like we were at the Kennedy Center and she talked, she was like, I remember David and I remember, and I'm looking at her and I saw like a little girl, like come out and like talking, and it was just so surprising. So like, yeah, like we never needed to encourage anyone. You know what I mean? Like we didn't have to encourage anyone to sing along. Like people would just start singing. It was quite beautiful. And also it wasn't, never got in the way of anything. It kind of added to kind of the show. So it was quite beautiful to kind of, and the way the show was written, like I talk to the audience, you know what I mean? So it's like there's no fourth wall, like that we like to say, like they're part of it. And so if I'm talking to you, you're gonna talk back. You know what I'm saying? Like that's just part of it. And it's like in church they call it like call and response. If the preacher's saying, like in a black church, a preacher will say something and someone in the congregation will be like, Amen. You know what I mean? And so like there was a lot of that talking back per se, like during the audience, but it never interrupted the flow. It actually added to the energy. It was beautiful. So yeah, they sang all the songs.
Um, Last question for you, Derrick, and I really appreciate you finding the time to speak to me and talk about so much. I really, really enjoyed it, and I hope you have as well. Um, my final question,
Yeah, I have.
sorry, because the signal is a bit, so I'm hearing a little delay here. But so I always ask these questions to all my guests, and it's been a bit of a tradition. But how do you look back on your so far?
How do I look back? What?
How do you look back on your career so far?
Extremely grateful, extremely fortunate. I've accomplished some pretty big things. Um, to create a Broadway show is a big accomplishment. And I've accomplished that 4 times. So I've originated shows on Broadway. There are kids who will come up to me and say, I studied you in college, you know? And so to know that I am an inspiration to people who want to do musical theater, who want to do theater, who want to be an actor, um, I don't take that very lightly. And I'm very grateful to be part of the history of Broadway, and not just a small part. I'm a pretty big part of that, and I know it's something that doesn't happen for everyone. And it's something that I have to remind myself to kind of remember who I am and who I am in the history of Broadway. Like there's a right now, I was gonna like use my tablet to Zoom instead of the phone, and so I was setting up on like these books, and I'm looking at this Broadway book, this huge book. I have two Broadway books. It's like the history of Broadway or whatever, and I'm in there, and I'm in there several times. You know what I mean? And so when I look back on everything that I have accomplished, I have had a very blessed career. It has not been easy, but it's been very fulfilling. Um, I feel very proud of what I've accomplished. Everything I've done, I can say I really did my best in that, or I really learned a lot. And everything that I have accomplished is actually setting me up for even greater things that I'm going to do in film and television as I pursue more of that now. Like Broadway has prepared me to become an A-list actor. Do you know what I mean? And so I look back and I'm very grateful for everything that Broadway has taught me.
Thank you guys for tuning in to the Creative Space Podcast channel. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the channel so you can be notified for more content in the future. Thank you once again.